know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
For the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green, and we got another week with another review of WoW and their brand new season, new location, all that good stuff crammed in, new look, new graphics. But will it be the same old WoW? Time will tell. Despite what I may say in the course of this review, it does appear to be a reasonable start here. I do not agree with everything. Let me make that disclaimer right now. I do not agree with everything that they did leading into this episode, nor within the episode. However, just the fact that they have a look, that there's effort, that the matches seem to be, fairly competent at this stage. I'm not gonna knock it. I'm not gonna knock it totally, at least. But we will get into that. How are you guys doing? And thank you for tuning in. So, as we like to do here, before we go off into the full-on review, let's talk about a few things that's happening in the world of women's wrestling, and then subsequently, a few things that might relate to WoW as news-wise. So, it is now time for the news, views, and updates. And I don't think I mentioned this when it happened. I probably was still trying to repair things here and never got to it, or maybe I just had too much news. Who knows? But Giselle Shaw has departed TNA Wrestling. I do not find that shocking at all, given the fact that her fiance, boyfriend, spouse, I don't know what Scott Demore is to her in a legal sense. I know that they've dated or are dating. Given the fact that he was let go of TNA a couple of months back, and that he has now started his own wrestling promotion again, I believe up in Canada. He might be reactivating Border City, I don't know. But the fact that that's taking place is not shocking at all, that she would leave and join him. Not a big shock there. So she was talented. Now, before we even go into anything, because I'm sure somebody about to well, she's this and that. Look, what her personal changes, we will call it, were or are, I will leave that in her hands. We're just talking about the wrestling end of things. And within the ring, she was talented. Also was part of WoW's roster at one point in time, if we want to rope that back around to that. And provided some good matches there too. Unfortunately, nothing memorable, but and when I say that, I mean like something that fans would be like, oh, you got to go out your way to watch this match. It just never happened. But the end result here, talent aside, what she could or could not have done within TNA Wrestling, formerly Impact, that's aside from the point. Again, it is not shocking that she would choose to leave and help her mate, we will call him that, in establishing his new promotion. So we will have to keep our eyes out for that. Perhaps it'll be something worth watching and in the upcoming future. TNA's Tag Team Knockout Champions, the two-time Knockout Champions Spitfire, just won the titles back, coming off of, what was that, Victory Road. Apparently, Alicia Edwards was injured and could not defend. In her place, tagging with Masha Slamovich, Tasha Steelz. I think they also walked in this with a stipulation that Spitfire would have to disband as a team if they did not win the titles. Well, fortunately, that did not happen. They won the titles, so they remain the tag team champions. And as far as I have read, there is still some crossover that's going on here with TNA and NXT. And that crossover seems to be leaning towards the team of Spitfire. Looks like there are going to be some challengers coming from NXT land for the tag team championships. Now, I think it's fair to say when you have other promotions or promotional competitors coming into your spot and challenging you for your championships, regardless of how big on the roster they are, it does do something for your championship. Yes, and I'm going to make a quick sidebar here. It'll all roll back around, I promise. I was watching, who's that, Marky D? He likes to do a lot of stuff on TNA or, like I said, formerly Impact Wrestling. And he posted a video which I half agree with, and some of it I'm like, well, I don't agree with it entirely, but I get his point. And that TNA is kind of morphed into this developmental program for the WWE, or more specifically TNA, and has been somewhat lopsided. I will agree with him in that, TNA has given some of their bigger names. They've given Jordan Grace, they've given Joe Hendry, Alexander Hammerstone, and so on and so forth. They've given pretty much some of their top people to appear on NXT, whereas NXT is given maybe a little bit underneath mid-card, we'll say. Like, I like Wendy Chu, but Wendy Chu is not one of their main event girls. But that's not to say that, Jordan Grace hasn't gotten in the ring with their main event girl, Roxanne Perez. But I did want to, just piggybacking off of his statements about TNA and the NXT relationship that they have. And at the beginning of that video, if you seek it out, he's like, I need you to put your business hat on. And I agree with him. I was like, you do have to look at it from the business standpoint rather than the fan. And here's my take on that. The crossover has been lopsided in terms of talent. I absolutely agree. However, I do think that there is something that is gained from TNA in this instance. If we're going to go back, let's go back to, what was that, 2 years ago? Mickie James shows up at the Royal Rumble wearing the Impact Knockouts title. That was before they flipped it back to TNA. So she was able to get that belt and get some eyes on that promotion by appearing on their pay-per-view or a premium live event. So I think there is something that is gained in that. Same thing with the following year when Jordan Grace repeated the process. Did she eliminate anybody? No, but she didn't need to eliminate anybody. They let her go in there and she was strong. Not necessarily dominant. Well, she dominated for a little while, but she was strong. That's the point. She didn't just walk in there and get ran over and put out instantly. She walked in and she was a strong competitor. And again, wearing the belts of the promotion that she's working for in front of probably 4 times the audience on WWE, thereby hopefully drawing attention to her promotion. And she has gone back since then. Yeah, they haven't sent their top people in the TNA. They may not ever do that. But what I will say, they gain on both sides. NXT, regardless of its brand affiliation and being with WWE, I think it's safe to say that at this moment, TNA Wrestling has bigger stars than NXT does. At this particular moment. Now, that may change. But as of right now, I think TNA, when you look at its roster, top to bottom, and compare that to NXT's roster, they have more notable names and faces than NXT does, surprisingly enough. You got Nick Nemeth, former Dolph Ziggler, Jordan Grace, who they put on their own television. I would include PCO, but I'm going to be fair. But honestly, PCO has been wrestling for, 25 years. He's been on WWE television as one of the Quebecers and the French-Canadian Pirate. And he was on Ring of Honor television as PCO and even TNA in earlier years as, X, I think. So he has a lot of airtime across multiple platforms, but I'll even skip that and let's just go down the line of the people that they do have. Ash by Elegance is there, the former Dana Brooke. Santino Marella pops up on their TV as their director of authority. Gail Kim is still a big name there. I'm probably skipping over Hendry. They've made into a name. So I don't even think that's fully on NXT, but you want to include them in the making of this guy. Renwald, who's their announcer. Matt Cardona, who's still wrestling. The Hardys have just showed back up. Mustafa Ali, who just came off of WWE television. Rhino, who's known from ECW and WWE and of course TNA in the past. They have names there. Steve Macklin was actually in NXT at one point, I believe. Zara Brookside participated in NXT's UK version, and we can even skip her. Go with Tommy Dreamer. Go with the System. At least two of them have been on WWE television. They have enough people there that you can point at like, okay, well, this person, that person. You might know this person from this place or AEW's television. I was just naming people that I know of that was on WWE's television, but they have names. Even Moose, who's never been on WWE television, has earned some kind of a name. Like I would tend to believe that at this point, he's probably a bigger name in the industry than, say, who's the new guy in NXT right now? I can't. Oba? I can't remember his name right now. It completely dropped out of my mind right there. But he's a new guy. So it's not supposed to be that he's a big name right now. He's got some time. Obafemi. That's it. That's what I was thinking about. Obafemi, the North American champion. You could argue for Ethan Page, who's come off of TNA television, but he didn't do nothing in AEW. Probably had more airtime in TNA and a bigger run in TNA than he did there. But overall, apples to apples, they probably have a more recognizable roster by face, if nothing else, than NXT does. So NXT does gain something off of that. And keep in mind, this happens to be taking place right before they go into the CW, right? They weren't the same company as NXT Black and Gold when Triple H was running, when he was just making it his personal super indie. Now they're going through a rebuilding phase. And part of that rebuilding phase is picking up some buzz about them. And they've done a couple of things that they brought down some of their stars from their own, from the WWE's roster. Cody Rhodes made an appearance on there, most notably when he walked to the three guys that were from AEW, like, hey, you're in a good place now, little double entendre there. But they started doing that, and then they ran into this. And I think it's only helping NXT build their thing. And then the other side of that, TNA is getting to advertise their product on WWE television. That cannot be shortchanged. That cannot be shortchanged. Yes, it is a lopsided proposition in terms of talent, but getting their championships, getting some of their wrestlers, getting, portions of angles onto NXT's TV, WWE's TV, which is about to hit broadcast television. So, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a fan base that's going to follow them to the CW. There is no way to shortchange the value of that. I'm not saying that they should do it forever, but there's no way that you can cut loose the value of it. Now, what I want to happen before they go is maybe a big star shows up down in TNA at least once. Somebody who has a relationship with the company where they can do that. Like Ethan Page showing up there would be great. He's already got history there. You could even say the New Day showing up down there would be good. Xavier Woods has history there. Anybody, the New Day versus the Hardys, that could work, right? Point being, just addressing that particular thing, I think if we're going to look at it just for talent's sake, yes, I will concede that it is a better fit for WWE than rather the other way around, or NXT rather than the other way around. But I do think that TNA does get something from this. If nothing else, like I said, the advertising of their brand, and I would tend to believe that having the, quote, possibility of a surprise NXT wrestler showing up at some of these tapings probably drives up some level of ticket sales to some degree. But that's just my 2 cents. And I know I got completely off of women's wrestling to do that, but that's just me, and I just felt like I wanted to share that just a little bit before we move on. And move on we shall do. There was a nice appearance by Julia crashing. Well, Roxanne Perez first crashed CM Punk's promo, and then Julia came in to address Roxanne Perez. Told her basically that, your time is limited. I mean, that wasn't the exact verbiage that she used, but the clock's running, essentially. You got 2 weeks to hold on to that title. She tries to attack her from behind, does Roxanne Perez, and Punk steps in the way and stops it. Now, I should also bring up that, they had a nice little promo exchange between the two of them. Thought that was pretty cool. This is one of those things that you can't shortchange a good promo battle. Now, I wouldn't say that it was battling, but there was an exchange between the two. I wish other promotions, hint, would take a note from that. Thunder Rosa's out with a concussion. That's never good. At least I don't think so. Since we know more about concussions these days than, several years ago. But yeah, this is never good when you hear somebody that gets a concussion. She was, what was this on? The Busted Open Radio. She stated this on Busted Open Radio. If you feel like you have a concussion, make sure you stop. Don't get in there. It's not worth it. I can tell you, I'm suffering a concussion. So I'm going to be out for a little bit, for a couple of weeks. Good on her that she recognized that. Good on her that she's not going to let somebody just talk her into, well, you can work your way through. No, I agree with her. Sit that thing out. It's not worth, putting your health on the line. Sorry to hear that took place. I believe they noted it as her her getting a concussion in a series of matches against Deonna Purrazzo. Was that? No. I am wrong. I'm wrong there. The last match was in August in a 4-way. That assumably is where she got that, but I do not know that for a definite fact. But the end result here is that she is a smart enough woman to know that I do not need to be in anybody's wrestling ring while I'm dealing with a concussion. So, bravo to her. Athena makes the longest reigning Ring of Honor champion in its history, and I would be more ecstatic about that. I mean, bravo to her, and congratulations. She has 646 days as the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. That is more than anyone, male or female. And as I was about to say, I would feel more ecstatic about that if this were not the AEW-owned Ring of Honor. I mean, like I said, I don't even watch this thing because it's behind a paywall. If I see somebody upload an episode, I'll check out that episode. But generally speaking, I don't watch this. And it's not because of the talent. It's largely because of the presentation does not make me want to see it. They're almost always secondary to anything that happens on AEW's television. So it's just not enticing to me to like, I want to see this thing. No, I really don't. It's great that she has it, but it's also kind of like how I felt when you had Kurt Angle win the WCW championship. Like, technically he won that, but come on. It was the WWE owned WCW championship. Same thing with the Dudleys. It was the WWE owned WCW championship. It didn't mean as much because it came from a company that already approved it. You didn't have to prove yourself in a different environment with a different roster of people in a different ring. That didn't happen. So, whereas I am happy for her that she has this distinction, I really wish in another lifetime somewhere that this Ring of Honor was still on its own, still operating independently of another wrestling promotion. And then if she had that, it would be great. One of the last things I wanted to talk about before going into the full-on review, and I know I brought it up in the last podcast, was the idea of the Bus Belt Championship. Now, if you hadn't heard the last one and you're just hearing this now, the Bus Belt is apparently the championship belt that is the next one to be introduced by WOW at their live event on the 28th in Las Vegas. Apparently, this will be, I guess, a secondary championship, or at least I assume it'll be a secondary championship, and this belt was named after co-owner Jeannie Buss. This might start up a theme for me because I know I'm going to say this later on. It feels like a vanity title. I will have to wait and see how this is played out, what it's used for, what significance it holds within the WOW's universe. But as stated before in the last one, I am not a huge fan of a very specific belt that defines nothing. It doesn't really define anything. Like, the Intercontinental Championship defines a region. The United States Championship defines the region. Television Championship defines, I am the champion of, the television appearances and blah, blah, blah. Always defended on TV, theoretically, and so on and so forth. The Bus Belt, I guess, could be whatever they want it to be, but I mean, what would they do if she just pulls out all of a sudden? Like, you know what? No, and then somebody else comes in. Are you going to rename the title? I don't know how well I like this idea yet. I mentioned it sounds, somewhat on par to me of the TBS Championship or the TNT Championship. Is it seems, in my view, and I'm only going to say for me, in my view, seems a little short-sighted, although I do not have a money mark that I need to make happy. And they probably need to continue to make her happy, one way or the other. Hey, we made this belt out to you because we love you so much. Stuff like that. And lastly, the usage of Paola, what's her name? Mayfield, who is now part of the WoW roster. Some of you out there may know who she is, being a former reality star, apparently from 90 Day Fiance and The GOAT. And its spinoff, 90 Day Fiance Happily Ever After. And I would guess that there are going to be some people that's going to resent her just for that, if they are aware of it. But I will use this example to say, let's give her a break and check her out. Well, several, really. One, look at where The Miz is now opposed to where The Miz was when he started. Because they did a lot of that. Him coming off reality television, that became his defining characteristic for quite some time until he figured out who The Miz was beyond that point. And they allowed him to do it. So there is precedent for her to survive. Two, she's already been wrestling matches outside of WoW before this point. Now, this, of course, leans into the fact that she had left professional wrestling, even on the indies, for some time, because this is her, quote, return to the world of professional wrestling, and she joins the WoW roster to do that. So I have higher expectations on her than I probably would have had I not known that. And lastly, and I know I brought this up on the previous podcast, that having a celebrity that you can leverage in some fashion is a good thing. Now, will she be a game-changing talent? I doubt it, because I don't know if WoW knows how to make a game-changing talent. I don't know if WoW knows how to utilize a game-changing talent. Somebody that's going to get you press, somebody that's going to, draw more eyes to your product. I don't know if there is the right crossover for her to get her audience to see her wrestle. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know if that is the case just yet. But that being said, I cannot overlook that she might bring some people in. She may just well do that. And using a great celebrity or a big name always, well, I'm not going to say always, but it's generally speaking a good idea, provided that you know how to do it and they can be integrated into your world pretty fairly. Couple of examples from the past. Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper. I know that probably falls on deaf ears now, but back in those days, Mr. T was like the biggest star on television. Cyndi Lauper was one of the biggest pop singers in the world. That was in the 80s, and that helped launch the current version of WWE with that WrestleMania, getting all that attention on them. Mike Tyson in the 90s. That helped. Go to WCW, Dennis Rodman being there helped out. It got them on, sports shows and whatnot. You can say the same thing a couple of years earlier than Dennis Rodman with Shaquille O'Neal when Hogan popped in. Jay Leno. Now, I know somebody out there like, what, Jay Leno? Yeah, well, look, I'm not saying that the match was a good idea. What I am saying is that him allowing them on his show, and keep in mind, at that point in time, Jay Leno was the highest rated late night talk show host on television. And, he had massive eyes on that show. So to get on there, have him involved in the angle of any sort, that helped. ECW even did it to some level with Limp Bizkit, having the guys show up on stage, You might be able to make a case for Paul Varelans being coaxed. I'll use that as the term here. Being coaxed into having a match to lose to Taz. TNA, same thing. Toby Keith, Chris Rock. You can almost even put Sting in that category because him being there turned the tide of what people thought of that company. It turned the tide of what people and other wrestlers believed about that company. Like, maybe this is a good place to go to. Because everybody else, it's not like they didn't have stars there. Everybody else kind of came and went. He was one of the first big names that came in there, and he stuck around. And it became his home for like the next, 6-7 years? I mean, they threw crazy money at him, but still, you get the point. But all of that being said, it is now time that we get ready for the review of their new season of WOW Women of Wrestling. And I'll probably start off with going through their roster page because it hasn't been updated, and I don't understand why. But I will do that after I come back from the break. So whatever it is that YouTube sticks into this little spot, sit through it, and then we will be back on the other side of it, and we will continue on with the review. And we have returned. It is now time to get into the review of the first episode of the third season of WOW. It is, here's the opening slate, episode 301. The title, Beast or Bust, the chronological number, 105. The air date, September 14th. And before we officially go into the review, let's take a look at two things that I really wish that WOW would go ahead and fix. Now, this has nothing necessarily to do with the television broadcast, but they should fix this all the same. There are certain people that are on their roster page that either are not available through this season for whatever reasons, injury, chose not to come back, wasn't invited back, or whatever the case may be, or they are quit or fired. But if that is where they are with certain people, update the page. I mean, there's really no reason for you just to leave that thing lingering like that, especially when I can see that they've added on new faces for this season pretty much already. It's been updated to some degree. Tracy Taylor's in this thing. Well, her name's not Tracy Taylor on the show. It's Kalaki, the Island Girl Kalaki. But the point is that they did add something in there already. First off, some of these pictures should have been updated. For the people that you do have, is Top Tier, for instance. Top Tier has a profile picture as a group, but then they also have their individual slots, and it doesn't really seem to be any sort of rhyme or reason behind that. It's just some people have dual slots and some people don't, even though we know them as being tag teams. Like Campanelli's picture is old. She hasn't got the red outfit on anymore. Glitter's picture is old. Crush's picture is old. But then they got this picture together as part of Top Tier, and they're all updated. How hard is it to take one of these photos that you got, because I'm sure you got plenty, and put that in there? Vigily and McCoy, we know, isn't coming back. Why is she still on this page? The Tonga twins, we know, are not coming back unless some other miracle took place. Why is she on this page? The disciplinarian, same thing. She's already left. Why is she still on this page? There are certain people here, there's no reason for you to have that. Sophia Lopez has changed her look. You should update it. Sasha Sparks, I don't believe is coming back. Why is she still there? Why are certain people in dual profile pics opposed to others? The Brat Pack is a team, so why is there nothing with the Brat Pack like there is with Top Tier? or the Dojo Defenders. There's a lack of consistency there. Either you're going to list them as tag teams or you're going to list them singularly, but don't jump back and forth between the two. If anything, if you're trying to do that, take the tag teams. And look, and I understand. I know the people at WoW are not listening to me, but in the off chance that you do, take the tag teams and separate them, all teams, not just tag teams. Let me just say all teams. Take all teams and separate them from the single roster. If they're not going to participate in anything singularly, then that's fine. But they don't need to be lumped into the same page with everybody else. Let them stand out. That is my suggestion there, because like I said, there's really no rhyme or reason as to why some people are separated and others aren't. I mean, team spirit is supposed to be a team, but there is no team spirit profile. There's a profile for Sasha Sparks and there's a profile for Pep Riley, but not as a unit. I don't like Animal Instinct, but Animal Instinct is a team, but there's no profile for Animal Instinct. There's one for Katarina Jinx and there's one for Goldie Collins, but not the two of them together. You see what I'm saying? So if you're going to push someone as a team, push them as a team. Second thing, update this. People who are not there and you know they're not coming back for some, I mean, we don't have to look any further than the Tonga twins. Because anybody that's listening to this podcast right now already knows the circumstances with that. If you don't, then you can find the video where I went over it and I talked about them getting fired, question mark, question mark, question mark. Or quit, question mark, question mark, question mark. They don't need to be there. Vicky Lynn does not need to be there. Anybody that is no longer part of that roster, create an alumni page and move them over there. Or just take them off entirely. They do not need to be on there. Now, that's just my 2 cents. Just wanted to get that out of the way. and just add that as a minor suggestion. Whether they listen to it or not, different story, but minor suggestion. So, and I'm sure I'll probably think of some other stuff as I go along. So this is the new season. It begins with new set, new titles introduced. The first thing that we see is David McLean walking out of the hallway or whatever, the entranceway to walk in towards the arena. And he does his welcome to WoW shtick. Now, I don't know how I feel about it opening up on him necessarily. But that is my personal thing. It's not like it damaged the show any or anything like that. But I just don't personally think that it should have opened up on him. Probably should have opened up on one of the talents that we're going to address as their stars going forward. But, that's neither here nor there. So he comes out. It is brought up that they are about to make some history and introduce, something new, which is fine, I guess. And before I even read this, I'm just going to tell you now, I am not a fan of 6-person tag team championships. I'm not. That doesn't mean they can't work. I'm just not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them for this reason. Some of you may have listened to the last episode and it was explained, but I will re-explain it now. I very rarely have seen 6-person tag titles that meant much of anything. It just, by and large, those belts, after a while, seem to lose interest or they get shuffled down the card. And if nothing else, it forces the promotion to make a hodgepodge of people and throw them in together in order just to challenge for the belts. I have only known 2 places or promotions or locations, whatever you want to call it, that have made that work. One, a lucha promotion, because that seems to be a bigger deal there amongst that wrestling crowd, opposed to here. We lose interest in it. The second one was WCCW, World Class. Now, that's been a long time ago. And it worked because it was built on and centered around primarily the Freebirds and the Von Erichs. But once they were done, that was it. It also came off to me like this was, I mentioned it earlier, I will say it again, it's like it's a bit of a vanity belt. They brought it up on Wild's TV, and then they brought it up on somebody's podcast interview, and like, yeah, we need belts because we're the best team in Wild and this, that, and the other. Which I don't agree, and I'll get to that too. But yeah, it's like they just brought it up, and then, all right, well, let's just make them some belts. I thought that Top Tier would have gotten more mileage out of being integrated into the tag team division rather than trying to create their own, because that's basically what this is just creating their own division to be the queens of. And so now it's going to be up to the rest of the roster to get rotated in and out of somebody's pairings to see who's going to topple them. It would have done more for them, in my opinion, to have the tag team championships and do a Freebird rule thing where any 2 of the 3 could defend the titles. And I'd even go a step further, because I don't know why no one's used this yet. The Jersey Triad had like the best take on the Freebird rule that I can remember seeing. And I would have definitely applied that to Top Tier. That being, let's say that they won the tag team titles. Top Tier does. And they use the third person to cheat to get it, as they would. And then you have Dave McClain. In this instance, he could say something along the lines of, well, you use the third person to do that, but I'm making an edict right now that only 2 of you can defend the titles at any given point. There will be no third person, interfering and blah, blah, blah. And they take that under consideration, so they apply it. So now what you get in the tag matches, they say, well, we're doing what you told us to. You just didn't say it had to be, a decision made in the back. We could do that, during the match. Meaning, let's say you got Candy Crush and Glitter up on the apron and Campanella's on the floor. Glitter goes into the ring. She does something. They put the heat on her. They knock her down. She wants to take a breather. She rolls out under the bottom rope. Campanella gets on the apron. Glitter goes out to the floor. So now we've swapped out people mid-match. And that gives them the advantage within the rules of the confinement that was presented to them. That's what the Triad did. I do not understand why no one has taken advantage of that yet. But you can't do that in a triple, in a trios environment. It's hard to get heat. So anyhow, bravo on the titles. They look nice. I will say that they look great as championship belts. I just think it's the wrong titles. So they come out, they being Top Tier, and they are presented these brand new belts in this nice presentation with the purple covering, and he pulls it off, and wow, we got these belts, and here you go, and they all hold them up, and then they're immediately put into like a new a defending situation immediately. We'll say that. Why are they getting these belts to begin with? Now we get to that. Why are they getting these belts to begin with? Let us not forget Top Tier, the greatest wrestling faction or group in all of wrestling, lost 3 times in a row to Ariel Sky and random partners. Do you realize that? 3 times in a row to people who were not her partners, essentially, until they just teamed up that day. So why would Top Tier be awarded championship belts? First off, they're heels. They shouldn't be awarded anything unless the person giving it to them is a heel also. But why would he award them and or their behavior? He mentioned it while talking about it. You had a trophy, and then he said something to the effect of until it got cracked over Ariel Sky's back. Now, Campanella did a good job because during this they did have their little verbal exchange. But it is, in this instance, rewarding the heels for what? I didn't necessarily think that should have been a thing. I thought it should have been they would win those titles. You know, even if they're like, all right, we're going to, you know, we got these new titles and we're putting you right into a match with it. And for however they chose their opponents, choose some opponents and let them go after against them. And then they win it and then they can go on and whatever. But just hand it to them because they won that half-ass tournament, which was terrible. That tournament was terrible. WoW is awful at doing tournaments. So I didn't want to see another tournament by any stretch of the imagination. But, yeah, when I see things like this, it makes me feel like the wins and losses in WoW account for very little. Because you can just turn around tomorrow and then be right back into some situation like this. The Top Tier, based on record alone, should not be going into getting that championship. It's not that they're awful. It's not that they've lost every match. It's just that, how are they getting this? When they clearly have had a string of losses against this one person, and the other 2 people, whoever they happen to be, get the belts. I mean, you know, how would they get the belts if they couldn't even get past them? One of them, Ariel Sky barely got into the ring and she still won. So anyhow, they get the belts. I still think that the titles are worthless, but they may change my mind as time goes on. And it's nice to know that WoW has not changed its overall mantra about introducing people into WoW. You come in here for the first time, you gotta do the job. And that is what happened. So the first match in the next segment was Top Tier versus the thrown together team of the Island Girl Kalaki, Chantilly, Chella, and Holidead. Now, during the course of the match, they talked about what Chella and Holidead reached out to her. I'm like, what would they reach out to her for? How did they know that they were going to be involved in the title match for these belts? But anyhow, she walks out and she walks into a title match. Why? Now, for those of you who do not know who Kalaki is, she is Tracy Taylor. Tracy Taylor has been wrestling for quite some time on the independents. I, in fact, I know for certain one. I think I have 2, but I know for certain one, at least one match with her in it. And that particular match, she's in there against somebody who would go on to be a WoW girl. So I guess now is 2 of them. So she is experienced. She's not somebody who's just walking in off the street or answering the ads in the back page and nothing like that. No, she actually has done this. And as such, I really felt like they should have gone in the opposite direction. I don't know if I would assign her a new name. I thought it would have been more useful to try to position her as your in-house legend. And I think he could have made that happen too, if particularly given that she has such a history on the independents. She's been in there with a number of people who've gone on to other promotions, your TNAs, your MLWs, your AEWs, your WWEs, and so on and so forth. It's almost like they had to go through Tracy Taylor in order to get that spot. And all it would have taken is some footage from those promotions. They could have asked me. I would have given them the footage. Yeah, sure. So you can back up who she is and get her into a position where she can be valuable to this place. Have her do a sit-down interview. Have her talk about her career, why you got the B-roll of all these other places to do it. And now I've made it here. I've given 15 years of my life to professional wrestling. And she could put the company over. Now I've made it to the nationally broadcast All-Women's League. Wow. It's my dream come true. And I only got one other thing that I need to do in order to make my career complete, and that is go out there and win the Wild Championship or something thereof. That would have been me, but, what do I know? So get into the match. We got all three competitors out. You already know what happened. Holidead starts this thing off. She starts off dominant, pretty much goes through all members of top tier until they get Glitter in the ring. She catches her and gives her a toss over the back, like the reverse fall away, and then Crush and Campanelli come in for the save. Tracy Taylor does some nice and deep arm drags, simple move, and she makes it look good. She does her signature stuff that she's been doing on Indies for a while, turning somebody's body into a surfboard. I mean, that is something that she's done for quite some time. She's very proficient at it. I don't know about the swimming thing. I don't necessarily care for that, but the surfboard deal I thought was, I thought it was cool before. I think it's cool now. I'm not a big fan of this new camera that they got. It's like they have it on a different frame rate. It's very shaky. It looks cinematic, but it's not uniform to everything else. I prefer it being uniform to all other cameras there so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb and give you nausea when you're looking at it. But like I said, that is just me. So going forward in the match, you've got a pretty good one here. Crush looks good. She doesn't look like somebody who just started learning it a couple of months back. I guess it's been longer than that now. Collectively, her matches might equal a couple of months, but chronologically, it's done it for like two years, I think, at this point. But in any case, the match went fine. The match seemed very engaging. I don't know what I think about the audience in this particular case yet. They just seemed like they were just applauding just to applaud. I likened this in the room at work to a stunt show. And I don't remember if I used this description before, so I will use it now. I described it like, there was one guy who's like, he didn't really understand the whole deal with WoW. I said, look, I feel like WoW is like this. If you've ever seen a Batman stunt show or something where they have a stunt show from a popular movie, well, I will stick with Batman because he's pretty timeless. They are playing the same character. The guy that's in the stunt show and whichever Batman that you may prefer. Michael Keaton, Ben Affleck, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, whoever. Who did I forget there? Christian Bale? Yeah. So it is the same person participating in an adventure on a different platform, right? With the stunt show, even though it's Batman, you typically do not get as emotionally invested in the journey that person is going on as you would in the movie. You enjoy the stunts. You like seeing them go through the fire and beating up the people and doing flips and swinging on the rope and all that stuff like that. But overall, and even when they have a story that takes place within the confines of that stunt show, most people are not invested in the stunt show to that degree. Opposed to the movies, where you are invested in them. You are invested in the personality. You're invested in the journey. You want to know what they're doing, how they're doing it. Will they survive? You know, all of that good stuff. That is what I liken WoW and its audience to me as. WoW has wrestlers, and they have people who do a good job, and they put on good matches. But oftentimes, you could look at this and not care about anything that they're doing other than, hey, they won or they lost. And, you know, but you don't have a real strong emotional investment in it because you've not been given a reason to have a strong emotional investment in it. And more so than that, and this was the whole point of me getting to this, the commentators and sometimes WoW itself overall does not do anything to help that. The case in point, here you look at Top Tier, right? They were winning the match. They were doing great. Holidead comes in. She turns the tide. She tags back out to Kalaki, the island girl. She does like a gut-wrench power slam. The two members, Crush and Campanelli, come in and just start kicking the bejesus out of her. Until Holidead and Chantilly Chella come in and cut her off. Now, I will say before I go any further that Top Tier did cheat at some point by grabbing the foot, but that was about it. So when Holidead and Chella get both members, I guess it's three, but Crush and Campanelli on the ropes, they charge in and Campanelli and Crush just pull the ropes down and they fly to the floor and that's it. They're pretty much done. Then you have the island girl by herself because, you know, she's new. She can't win. So she gets caught with a code breaker. She's put down with that or staggering around and then tags out to her partners, Crush and Campanelli. They hit her with bottom tier, which is essentially a sit-out face buster. 1, 2, 3, they win. Now, what I didn't get here is that why is David rooting for Top Tier to win? Aren't they heels? Like you can hear him say, yes, they won. Like he was excited and happy for them. What happened to them being this heinous group and full of bullies? Why are you cheering for them to succeed? It doesn't make any sense to me, but for what reason would he do this? And that is the reason I say it's hard to get invested in it. Or that's one of the reasons. If you were looking at this for the first time, it might be confusing. Like, why is this guy rooting for them? Didn't he just say that they abused somebody, hit him with a trophy or something like that? But now he seems happy that they succeeded in beating this new babyface. Who knows? So they win, and Coach cuts a brief promo, which is nice. It's not going anywhere. It's just a promo to put the team over. We're Top Tier, and whatever. Nice but meaningless. Debut losses in WoW are normal, I wrote. And this was nothing any different than that. I don't like them, but for WoW, it's their norm. You come in there, you're going to lose. Very few people have won on their opening match. I still think they could have gotten more mileage out of her than what they're doing with an opening loss. But we will see as time goes on. The next segment, or I guess match, is Ice Cold versus Fury. Fury is back to singles all over again. Which also reminds me, why do they have Rebel Hayes on the Heavy Metal Sisters profile page on their website? Update it. And other thing. Yeah, I know I'm just going off into other stuff. And another thing. whoever's editing the clips on WOW's YouTube page, stop cutting people off mid-sentence. You can complete the video. You don't have to cut every little thing. I mean, I know WOW is trying to pad their numbers on this thing, but you do not have to cut every little thing. If the match had a aftermath, it doesn't need to be a separate clip. The aftermath could take place on that clip. It's not going to hurt. So anyhow, this is another fine match, but the narrative of the match is off for me. As we now just said, Ice Cold is not Ice Cold, but Fury is back to being on her own because I guess everybody's left. she's the last heavy metal sister standing, and I suppose that she's babyface again because before we didn't know she would come out there and she would be heel. But now she's looks like a definitive babyface because she's coming out and looking for cheers and playing to the crowd and all that stuff. WOW is wildly inconsistent with that. Wildly. I still like Ice Cold's demeanor, but I don't know if this match really did much for her, particularly in the aftermath. So let's move through that. Ice Cold seemed to do fine here. Athletically speaking, she can deliver what she needs to deliver. I do think that she needs to probably go somewhere else or at least get more reps in on how to be Ice Cold in total. There's promise there. But wrestling 6 or 7 times out of the year is probably not going to help her advance. And considering that this entire season was shot inside of 1 month, I mean, that's disappointing in and of itself. But considering that the entire season of WOW has been shot inside of a single month, there's probably not a lot of room for anybody to grow. You're not getting any sort of repetition. You're not doing this enough to learn any new tricks or any new nuances or anything like that. I feel that is what Ice Cold needs, along with several other people there. They haven't showed their faces on the show yet, but I'm sure they will get there. So, the commentators tried to make it out like Ice Cold had already been beaten by Fury when the last time that we saw them in the ring with each other, Ice Cold won. So I don't know where that's going. And more importantly than that, it's the end of the match that became the problem. I appreciate the fact that they probably stretched this match out a little bit more than what they normally would have, because I do believe it's probably about 4 minutes, but honestly, for Ice Cold, she probably needed to be in there for 2 or 3. So getting towards the end, what happened, Ice Cold does a springboard moonsault off the second rope. She misses that springboard moonsault. You know, she had great form on it, but Fury gets out of the way. She gets up, locks in the fly to Fury, nails her, and then that's it. 1, 2, 3, they're done. All right. After the match, Ice Cold throws a tantrum. This appears out of nowhere. There's no real reason. I wrote down what reason should she have to be upset. It was a nice cold match, but what real reason does she have to be upset? Her record isn't that bad to where she would do that. And it's especially starting off now in this season. Why Is she freaking out and melting down and having a problem and you're just losing her mind over the fact that she lost this one match? It would have been a different story if she had lost multiple times leading into this. But she, as far as most people are concerned, this is it. This is the one loss. So why is it like this is so devastating that I'm so angry and pissed that I lost? It doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. I try to relate some of these things so that it sounds, more plausible and understandable. One of the writing, not classes, it was like a seminar that the guys from South Park were giving. And it was brought up again on another podcast. And when I heard it, I was like, why didn't I remember that? Because I'd heard him talk about this before, but I don't know if I verbalized it as such. The statement was, when you are writing, it is not this thing happens, then this thing happens, then this thing happens, then this thing happens. Like we're just going to do a series of events. What it is that I've written this scenario for this character. This scenario causes this thing to happen. That thing causes the next thing to happen. And as a result of that thing happening, this next thing takes place also. Here, they are just things. She's just melting down for the sake of melting down. There's no lead into this. It's just boom. And I don't like to, put wow in comparison to, writing a standard TV show. But in this case, I think the rule applies. Whoever put this together based on, we would just want her to have a reason to freak out and do what she's going to do next. Whereas it should have been, there was a loss, I'm upset. Maybe another one, I'm upset. Another one is getting worse. Another one now is at its peak. Then we get to Fury and she loses and I can't take it anymore. And that makes me lose my mind and I quit or whatever the case may be. None of that, happened. None of it led into that. The next segment, Animal Instinct, taking on the Mighty Mites. This is the third match, although you probably would not know it because it didn't feel like that at all. This just felt like a cold match with nothing behind it. I wrote down, why is David speaking of the heel team as if they should be cheered? This is another one of those reasons that I'm like, there's no real clear defined roles for some people here. Now, there are those that come out there and they make it clear. They make it so you understand that I'm the heel or I'm the babyface. But in this particular instance, it's like he likes cheering for whomever he just cheers for, regardless of whether they're heel or not. One other thing I am going to take credit for, I'm sure I have nothing to do with this, but one thing I'm going to take credit for here is that they got rid of that stupid video that Goldie Collins had, where she's no longer just longingly looking into the eyes of her dog in an inappropriate manner. Goldie Collins and Katarina Jinx, I am just going to go ahead and assume at some point in time that they're going to win the tag team championships because somebody in that office really likes them and they probably will get it. If not them, it'll be the Fierce Sisters. So that's where I'm going to lodge my predictions as far as tag team belts go over the course of the year. I also do not understand what the hell the gimmick of the dog trainer is. There's nothing that she can really do about it. I talked about this in the last one. She doesn't come out there walking the dog. She doesn't really do anything dog related. She doesn't have anything that takes place in the ring that would lead you to see some connection between her and the gimmick of being a dog trainer. She doesn't look like a dog trainer. It's just a very shallow gimmick for the sake of having a very shallow gimmick, because everybody in the wild has to have some gimmick. Yeah. So Animal Instinct comes out, and then we got the Mighty Mites that come out along with them. Now, I still like the Mites, but I also now feel like they are probably just spinning their wheels in this company. It doesn't seem like they're going anywhere in particular other than to be able to provide a reasonable match for some people every once in a while. Collins has a good look. I will admit to Katarina Jinx and Collins having a fair look. I am not still sold on them, but I will give them that much. And of course, them being in the ring with these tiny girls makes them look gigantic and powerful and all that good stuff. But there are points in that match where, like, Spice did this great arm drag into a roll up, and they do such good in-ring work. They do. They are the Mighty Mites. That sounded terrible when I said do they do. But anyway, they do such good work in there. I would just rather see them with a team that can somewhat match them in terms of wrestling ability. Animal Instinct, for as good as they may look visually, and giving credit where it's due, I will say that they have, they're competent in the ring, and I'm not going to just, say that they're terrible or nothing like that. They're not. But they're probably not the team that the Mites need. I will stand by that. I do not think that they are the team that the Mites need. They might be the team that Animal Instinct needs to get themselves over, but they're not the team for the Mites. Because this was basically Animal Instinct's show. Yeah, the Mites got a couple of moves in there, but it was largely built off of, we got to do something to take down these giants, which I'm sure that's most of their matches, except for in the case of like the Brad Pack or maybe the Las Banditas or something like that. Collins does a nice suplex. So she is getting the snap of the moves down. Cannot discount that either. There are portions that took place here that I questioned what they were doing. Like at the beginning where Collins demonstrates her size and strength and just kind of tosses Sugar off, but then she just turns around and tags her partner for no apparent reason. Katarina Jinx at some point in the match using Spice as a cat toy, which I thought was just highly stupid. The camera missed a save earlier in the match where Katarina Jinx is down and Collins comes in for the save, but they were so locked in on this close-up of Jinx that you couldn't see it. There was a point where I don't know if Katarina got confused or suddenly thought about, I'm supposed to be out of the ring or whatever the case would be, but like at the end, she was in her corner, her opponent gets away, she runs across to make the tag, and she looked like she was going to go and try to stop her, and then she just like, nope, let me tag out. It was like she just had a little brain freeze or a brain fart or whatever the case would be. She just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And then, during that same time, like that little same segment, while Spice is in the corner, she's standing around licking her fingers and doing the cat thing, which I think that's just ridiculous and absurd. It doesn't look like she's doing anything of value anywhere. But that is the spot where she tries to stop her. Then she leans over and like, I'm going to go out there, and just like, nope, let me tag out. It's those moments like that when I'm like, yeah, they probably still need a little bit of work. So getting towards the end, Katarina Jinx and Collins who was it up that they had? They had Sugar, I believe. They pretty much put both of the girls in their corners. They tried to do a do-si-do, and it looked like that might have got sidetracked a bit, but they recovered as Jinx was kind of tossed in and giving kicks to both members on opposite turnbuckles or opposite corners. I don't know why Zayn feels the need that he's got to announce a full name anytime anybody walks in and out of the ring, but that he does, and I hope he stops. But Jinx gets rid of, after her kick, gets rid of Spice. Collins hoists Sugar up on her shoulders. They do their pause for whatever the hell it was. What is that? Pause for effect. And that's it. They go down, they being the mites, they go down clean to Animal Instinct. So like I said before, it's nothing that helps the mites, but it will help Animal Instinct in terms of their stature and presentation. Now the question is, will they be able to continue this on as they clearly like this duo? And I did write down, as I just talked about it, there's no investment in any of these personalities. I don't care about any of them. There's no reason to care. This is a cold match. Like I said, this is the third time they've been in the ring with each other, but you wouldn't know that because it's almost not referenced at all. There doesn't seem to be any sort of animosity. There's no feel of a rivalry here. It's just nothing. It's a match. And also wrote, Collins being a dog trainer means nothing. Katarina Jinx being this cat woman means nothing. And I do not like having gimmicks that you come out with that you cannot use. That whip. I publicly said that she needs to start watching some Dutch Mantel matches. If nothing else, to learn how to threaten somebody with that thing rather than just coming out there for show. Because otherwise, what's the point of it? There's no reason to have that whip. Beyond that, we just want to whip because we think that goes along with cats. Which I'm not sure where that came from, but we will move on. Next segment, we go backstage. As Nigel says, hey, we got footage backstage of what's going on. This looks like this was done some other way. I cannot prove. But it seems like this was an out of sequence thing. Her hair looks a little different back here than it did when she was outside in the match. It looks like it's completely styled different by my eyes, but like I said, I can't prove that. So Ice Cold comes into the locker room. She's kicking over stuff. She's mad. Her locker's open. She grabs her robe and then throws it in the trash. My comment here is like, again, why is she so upset? What is tossing this robe in the trash supposed to symbolize? We haven't seen her wear this thing in forever. Never mind the fact that she just was out in the ringside and she didn't have it on. So how important is this robe? Or cape or whatever the case may be. How important is that thing? It was sitting back there hanging in the locker. But, who am I to question these tiny things like that? I'm sure they're like, you don't know. But yeah, I mean, why would I take that as something that is supposed to be a meaningful act? Now, what I got from this segment is that maybe she's about to do a gimmick change. I don't know. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But it goes back to what I just talked about. They just have a thing to do a thing, to do a thing, to do a thing, rather than this caused me to do that, or this caused me to do this. There's nothing that caused her to go back there and get this cape. I mean, that is not symbolic of being ice cold. She hasn't even worn it in weeks. I cannot tell you the last time I seen her come out wearing a cape. But now all of a sudden it's supposed to be like, oh, I can't believe it. I mean, compare that to CM Punk's bracelet. You have a feud built around a bracelet that probably costs all of like $1.50. a feud, a blood feud at that. Because he established that thing as being important to him. He established that these little beads of plastic with my dog's name and my wife's name on it mean the world to me. It's important. This cape hasn't been established as anything. It's barely established as part of a wardrobe. And I might have taken that if that were, presented as such. Here is just something I went back in the locker room and threw away to a conveniently placed trash can. So I don't know. The one defining thing I walked out of this with is that why is she so mad? It would make a lot of sense if she was running a losing streak or something like that, but why is she so mad? Next segment. Wild comes back to the commentators. They recap the Ice Cold situation. They talk about the main event, the promos, and then we get promos by both Princess Aussie and Penelope Pink, which very good. I was pleased to see that. One, that it came from both of them, because the Wild has had a habit of putting whoever it is that's about to lose, do their promo and then nobody else. But here they gave both. Both of them did fine in their promos, although, I got to give the nod to Penelope Pink. She had more meat to her promo, in my opinion. That's not to discount Aussie, but hers came off like a standard babyface promo. You didn't get the title shot, you had to earn it, and I'm gonna, earn it. I'm gonna win and be the number one contender, and that's fine. Pink had more stuff to kind of bite into, and at the same time, she gave a little bit of who she was within that, as she does. She always kind of words it in to put herself over a little bit, and more so than that, the backgrounds of both of them I like. Now, even though Princess Aussie's background might have come off like it was not shot with a professional camera, I like that it looked different. That she was someplace other than the Wild Steps, and we're done with that since they're not in that building anymore. She's by the work cases. It looks like they just caught her, and hey, do you mind giving an interview? It gave me that kind of vibe. So I like the location that Aussie was in. I like the location that Pink was in. Why do I like that one? Because beforehand, you always had somebody who had to be conveniently placed by their own poster. If this was last season, it would have been Penelope Pink just happens to walk in front of a Penelope Pink poster. Or at the very least, a Fabulous Four poster. Here, it made more sense because it wasn't just hers. It was everybody's. It's the hallway, and she's walking down the hall. She's addressing the camera. She's giving her promo, and it looked so much better. So much better. And I was really good with that. And I want to say thumbs up to both ladies of what they did. Like I said, I do wish that Aussie had more meat in her promo to get into. But it's hard to do that as a babyface when there's no issue. Now, she probably could have made one because they have their history together. Princess Aussie and Penelope Pink. She probably could have built up on that, but I don't know what kind of instructions they gave her to do that. And I know that there are times when Wild might direct what they want you to do and say. So we'll leave it at that. The next segment. Jesse Jones and Abilene Merritt come out the ringside. And Jones is still claiming to be the number one contender. It's a good promo. But she's talking to David again, and I do not care for this constant heels coming out here. David, I got something to say, and whatever. So she goes on about this, which this is what I was concerned with the last time when she got a title match. She finally got that in her storyline. And then she was perfectly fine just blowing it. And then now she's come back out here saying, well, I need a title match. Now, in the real world, I'd be like, you had a title match, you idiot. Why'd you blow it? It'd have been a different thing. And again, this is whether they thought this through, saw foresight to it or not. It could have been an entirely different thing if she weren't sitting in the ring laughing after the Beast got conked in the head. If she had gotten on the microphone and said, no, I don't care what happened. I didn't have anything to do with that. I waited since I've gotten this company to get my title shot, and I'm going to get it. If she was pissed off about not getting the title shot or the title shot being taken away from her because of circumstances outside her control or circumstances that she did not admit to have anything to do with, I can see that totally. But because she's sitting there laughing about it and carrying on like, and now coming back out here, where's my title match? It's like, no, screw you. You had your title match. You blew that. But they're carrying on with this, and she says, all right, well, I'll just stay at ringside during this number one contenders match. And Abilene's already at the desk, who came out being wheeled out by Jesse Jones. She wheels her out there, puts her at the commentating table, and then she gets in the ring, gets the microphone, and has that little exchange. And she carries on about, like I said, being number one contender. Abilene Maverick, throughout the course of this, neither confirms nor denies their relationship or who's better than who or who should be the number one contender. Like, the first thing Jones says, that's not my music. And then they cut the Abilene. She's like, yeah, that's mine. So, I mean, it looks like they have created some tension of some regard, but I don't know where they're going with this. We're all going to have to see it unfold. Hopefully it will unfold and make sense. But that's where it starts off with. And then she being Jesse Jones, comes to the commentating booth. This seems to be their way to continue the Wild Beast attack plot line, I guess. I'm not overly fond of this, but, we'll leave that as it is. Next promo, because they had a little spot before they went to the main event, is the promo for Miami Sweet Heat versus the All-American Girls, apparently for the tag titles next week. Although that may be a little change, but I won't go into all of that. The main event, the final segment of the show, Penelope Pink and Princess Aussie going for the number one contenderships. Now, before I continue making any sort of criticisms towards the show, let me say I actually did like the episode. I didn't like certain lead-ins that they had and things like that, but I actually did like the episode. I hope it stays in its path. I hope it improves definitely. I don't know if I don't think I said it, but I do like the new set. Although, aesthetically speaking, I like the old one better. Not that this was bad, but the most visual thing that you get with that is the ramp and the entranceway. That's the best part of this set. The ramp and the entranceway. It looks fantastic. And the LED boards that they have up there on that set. The rest of the place is draped in black and it's got the LED lights and whatnot, and it is lit very well. It does create its atmosphere, but it didn't have the same atmosphere as the Belasco. The Belasco had atmosphere just in the building itself. If you're not looking at the entranceway for the new set, it may not deliver the same feel or environment as the Belasco did. Again, I'm not saying that this is a bad set or a bad look or anything like that. I'm just saying that my personal preference between the two at this point is the set that they had. Although it's been there so long and they looked at it so much that it's probably a good thing just for them to be off it just in general. So, despite the fact that this is a match with some history behind the two of them, it also feels a little cold. But I will also, I'll also say that, well, two things. One, I thought the match was probably better than what WoW deserved. I don't know how you want to take that, but they did good with each other here, in my opinion. They probably did better for that audience than that audience could take. They didn't seem like they were, how can I phrase, overly knowledgeable wrestling fans. They seemed very excited, and they seemed to enjoy what was going on. And I do believe that Aussie and Pink won them over at some point. It just seemed, or it felt like to me, that this would have been a better served match someplace else. That, again, that's just me. And the other thing that I was getting into, and more importantly, is like, where did this number one contenders match come from? Why is Pink in it? Didn't she just lose to the Beast not all that long ago? I mean, she lost like twice to the Beast and twice to Tiki Chamorro. And that's not to say that she shouldn't keep herself within the orbit of the title. But she essentially just showed back up. It's like, all right, I'm a contender again. And now we have to challenge between the two of us to see who's going to be. But why? What has happened in their paths, the path of Princess Aussie and the path of Penelope Pink, that would lead them into some sort of dispute as to who is the actual number one contender? It's just a number one contenders match for the sake of having a number one contenders match. Goes back to the same thing. It's just a thing in front of a thing, in front of a thing, in front of a thing. So, Jessie Jones is on commentator, and she's always good when she's there. Entertaining, but until I see something different, she's lost any legitimate claim to me on a title shot. I'm glad that she called out, all the persons that got it, because it's very much true at this point, and that the same 4 or 5 people kind of rotate in the orbit of that championship. And there's no real rhyme or reason to it. They're just there. So, I don't know. The match, the fans there seem to be rooting for the moves. Going back to the old stunt show scenario that I gave, although, like I said, I do believe that Aussie and Pink did get some of them invested in it at some point. But a lot of them just look like they're just fresh off of college campus, got some free tickets, and just decided that we're going to sit out here in the front row and cheer for whoever's doing what. I know I should not stereotype wrestling fans. I know this. But like I said, I've gone to a lot of wrestling shows over the years. I have yet to ever seen a group of young, attractive college women, all collectively, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of them, to see any wrestling show. I don't care who it was. And like I said, they just look like they're just there, like they was either paid to be there or encouraged by somebody like, hey, this is part of your goddamn internship with the Lakers. Go to the WoW show and cheer them on the front row so it can look good. So anyhow, without going into the match, I will suggest that you do watch it. That they got some more camera shots on David McClain that I probably would have liked, but they also did not do as badly, nearly as badly as the UWW, Ultimate Women of Wrestling. Whatever happened to them, by the way? I made one comment about them on Instagram, and then it gave me a message like, hey, you should have asked us first. We got all this good stuff going on, and this, that, and da-da-da-da. We're going to close down the UWW. We're going to just transition it over to, I forget what the name of the other thing was, but we're going to transition over to that, and we're going to do something special. And we got news coming for that in the near future, and that near future just came and went and didn't do another goddamn thing. UWW Fed. I mean, the last thing I got was at the beginning of the month, something that said the wait is finally over, development and testing is nearly complete. Get ready for something amazing to launch soon. I'm like, God. I know I got off track there, but I just had to bring that up while I was thinking about it. I was like, what happened to them? And their awful production. And that's what it was. It was awful production. They were the polar opposite of WoW. They might have had better matches, but their production sucked. Anyhow, getting back to the match that we were just reviewing. Where was I? Oh, yeah. The match was fine. I enjoyed it. Pink did a nice hanging neck breaker on Aussie. She sold it great. Clutching her head. Looked like she was in some legitimate pain there. Pink is, she's selling not the frustration, but the kind of desperation of getting this job done. And then there's anger. Both of them do such good little nuances throughout the course of their match. I mean, it's very enjoyable. I did not, like I said before, did not like that shaky cam. I just don't. It's good when you're doing a highlight reel. Like when you see on ESPN, because they use those things all the time in a lot of sports shows. They just don't present the sport that way. They're showing the highlights of the NFL. They usually have some different camera that they will do the highlights with just because they're the highlights. But the actual event itself, all of those cameras are uniform. And I think that here the same rules should apply. Those cameras should be uniform. The double kick spot that Aussie and Pink did on camera was not caught well on camera. There's a point about halfway through the match where they both get up. They're looking at each other. Pink's looking at her. Aussie's looking at Pink. They go towards each other. They both take a kick. They both catch each other's kick. Problem with that, and it's a good spot. The problem with that is that it was shot from the backside of Penelope Pink. So you couldn't really see it the way that you should. That would have been better if they had done that addressing the hard cam. Or if the editors had taken a different camera shot. I shouldn't say the editors. They're probably shooting this live to a hard drive. So I'll say whoever's directing the call. But it should have been a different shot for this because it took something away from that particular spot. Because even when they did that, they'd put both of the feet down and then they both took a right punch at each other and they both went down. It would have fed better if you were able to see them without, looking at the back of Pink's head. Also notice that Vicky Lynn McCoy is no longer out there. I don't think they've addressed that at all or said, hey, we fired her or whatever the case may be. She just isn't there anymore. So no more enforcer for Lana Starr. Lana came out looking great. She's, doing the old Lana Starr thing. I have publicly noted that I did not think that she was a good wrestler. That was several years ago. But I did not think that she was a good wrestler. But as a manager, I think that she may have found her calling within the wrestling business. If she can stick with it and if she can learn some stuff from the other managers from years gone by. If that is the case, I think that there's some mileage on her. Because all she's got to do is be the arrogant, egotistical Lana Star. I want the championships, and she does that very well. And whether she has her stuff written out for her or whether she's doing it off the top of her head, she delivers well. Delivers very good, actually. I'm not going to say well. She delivers very good. And at this point, she stands more or less head and shoulders above the other managers in that company. I've already said that Sophia Lopez has been kind of devalued. I mean, well, maybe I shouldn't say devalued, but she's had some taken off her because she's a babyface now, so she can't really participate like she would. Dante hasn't really done that much, doesn't really cut promos. Samantha Smart has just been kind of lingering, and she's in limbo. She's win one, lose another two, win this one, lose another three. So the only manager there at this point that has some sort of credibility is Lana Star. Getting back to the match. The spot of the match here was Pink goes up to the second rope. She gets distracted, looking around like heels do. Aussie comes in, kicks the feet out from underneath Pink, and then gets her hooked into cutter position and just jerks her head down into a cutter to the mat. Good stuff. And as a good manager should, Star gets right up on that apron, doesn't waste any time. Sorry. Bug flying around there. But Star gets over the apron, doesn't waste any time. And she distracts the referee. And then Aussie gets up. She goes to go confront Star. She distracts her long enough for Pink to come behind her and clip out the knee. But it's not enough to kick Aussie down. Aussie's staggering. She's looking around like, oh, my God, what's going on? But she does not have enough in her to not get hit with the Pretty in Pink float over. I don't want to say neck breaker, but float over whatever the heck. So Pretty in Pink finishes off the match. Penelope Pink wins, and she is now number one contender again. I would not have gone in this direction. However, much like I said with some other stuff, I am willing to see this out to see where it goes. What it looks like is that we have a race of sorts, I guess. You got Jessie Jones, well, at least tension, if nothing else. Jessie Jones claiming that she's number one contender, even though she pretty much gave up her title shot. We got Pink, who just won the number one contendership. We got Abilene Maverick, who is claiming to be number one contender. Then you got the Beast, who is the actual champion. So the thing that I wrote out here is that I don't know if this is the direction that they're going to go, but I said this is either leading to a triple threat or a four-way amongst the heels and the Beast. This angle is cooled off. Her getting busted in the head with the bottle and stuff like that. It's cooled off, and they're going to have to reheat it some kind of way. I don't know if that is possible, but we will see. Jessie Jones should no longer be a contender here. But again, I'm willing to see this angle play out before I condemn it or whatever. These matches were mostly cold. The main event match does seem like it's leading off into something else. But the first three matches were, seemed like they were just there just for the sake of being there. And the last one might have been vaguely built off of some preceding stuff if we're talking about the championship. But ultimately, I'm hesitant to say it's a one-match show. I don't want to go that far because that would devalue the other three. And I thought everybody else did good. Top Tier and Island Girl and Chella and Holidead. That match was fun. Nice introduction for the belts, although I don't think they need the belts. Ice Cold Fury match was good, even though the finish, or not the finish, but the aftermath of that match I did not get. Just didn't seem like it was important, and it came out of nowhere. Animal Instinct versus the Mighty Mites. Again, nice match, but didn't feel like anything was preceding it or coming from it. It just felt like another match. This one at least had some stakes wrapped up in it. It just didn't really do it for... I'm not going to say it didn't do it for me. The angle hasn't done it for me yet. The match did, but the angle hasn't. So, the good. New belts. New set. The matches on the episode were good. The promos included were at least for the main event and good. The bad. Heel team barely cheated and had the commentator rooting for him for some reason. Ice Cold Meltdown came out of nowhere. The episode was mostly cold matches. It was another debut met with a loss. And it's the same circle of talent going for the championship. That was my good and that was my bad. Theoretically, it can lead to a war amongst heels. We've had that already with the Fabulous Four and Los Banditas. They had their little beef with each other, I guess. But it didn't really go anywhere beyond that because Los Banditas was never presented on the same playing field as the Fabulous Four to begin with. They were never presented on the same playing field as the Fabulous Four. So in order for this match, potentially, if it is taking place, and keep in mind these matches are already shot, they're already in the can, we already know what took place. Well, we don't know what took place. We already know that it's done. But if this is where it's leading to, then, hopefully they will keep everybody competitive with each other, competitive enough to where you can actually get some sort of drama out of the match, where you can get some sort of thrill off of one person winning over another, opposed to just walking in and it being a foregone conclusion. And that was it. That was the full review of the first foray into their new season. Now, having done that, we got one other thing to do, and that is the preview for the next episode. And I'm going to go through that now. I may speak on a few things as we go, but I'm going to go through that, and we'll make a note here or there, if nothing else. The next episode, Season 3, Episode 2. So for me, it's going to be 302. It'll be chronological number for me, 106. The title will be Big Opportunities. Lana Starr has two things she's excited about this week. Her team of Miami Sweet Heat, Lovely Laurie and Luscious Lindsay Carlson, defending their WOW World Tag Team Championships against the All-American Girls in the main event, and the large amount of money that the Mother Truckers Big Rig Betty and Holly Swag owe her. And Lana's coming to collect on both. That statement does not make any sense, but we'll keep going. Roxy Fierce looks to make, a fierce impression in her singles debut against the Classmaster, while Tormenta attempts to settle an old score on behalf of her friend Sophia Lopez when she takes on Sylvia Sanchez. Also in action, the Brat Pack. BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni face the Dojo Defenders Kara Kai and Tyra Strike, each trying to make their mark on the Wild Tag Team division. Okay, so the quick note here, and maybe it'll unfold differently, but why is Lana Starr collecting money from the Mother Truckers? I thought that the stipulations were, if you put the titles on the line, I will eat the bill for this. If you put the titles up, they did. And they lost them. If they were going to have to pay the bill regardless of what happened, then why would they put the titles up in the first place? If they won and they were going to, and she was going to still make them pay the bill, Or I guess technically if they won, they might not have. Maybe they could have held like, we won, we got the belt, so you got to pay the bill now, I guess. I don't know. But it seemed like, that the way, maybe it was just worded wrong. Maybe that's it. I need to go back and check it, but I feel like that was how it was stated. And if that was the case, it's stated wrong. It's like, I will eat the bill if you put these titles online. Well, they did that. So she should be eating the bill. But I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be corrected. If I heard that wrong, let me know. Roxy versus the Class Master. I'm not looking forward to that at all. I don't know why Tormenta suddenly decided that she needs to stand up for the rights of Sophia Lopez all these weeks later against Sylvia Sanchez. But I guess Sanchez will be on her own since they're her partners, Rivera and Rose. Rivera quit, I assume, and Rose is indisposed with an injury, or was indisposed with an injury throughout this taping cycle. So we won't see her all year. But yeah, I don't know. This feels a little late. It feels a lot late to me. And the Brat Pack versus the Dojo Defenders. Hopefully it will be a better match than what the last one was, when they were clearly working around BK Roseman not trying to hurt her. But I will also say I said that they should have been in a feud. And it should have been an angry feud. Following her being BK Rose getting kicked in the mouth. How much more motivation do you need? That it speaks for itself. That would have and could have been the jump off as to why these two teams have beef with each other. And it would have given them something to do. Now, that's not to say that they won't start up a feud in this episode that we're waiting to see, but I doubt it. But time will tell. We will see. So I will leave it at that. I am only looking forward to see what the title match is going to be. I don't know why Lana Star would be excited about putting her belts on the line. I mean, for what? Did she just won them? Why would you be happy to defend the belts and the potential of losing it? Anyway, that's just me. Again, I'm willing to be wrong. On that note, thank you all for tuning in and listening to this other edition of Reviewing WoW and all this stuff. I hope that they are able to maintain the overall path that they've been on and get something good out of this season, rather than having a bunch of continuity errors and gaps in logic. But given the ice cold thing, I am almost certain that there's going to be continuity errors and gaps in logic. So I'll wait on that. And on my personal note, if you are listening to this on a podcast platform, as we are available on greater podcast platforms everywhere, please send a review. Subscribe to the platform that you're on. Follow us on that. If you are not doing it that way and you're catching us through YouTube, then you can do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss a review of this stunning show. If those things are not available to you for whatever reason, you don't know how to find it or where to go, then you can always go to WPNWrestling.com. It is the focal point of everything that goes on, both podcasts and videos alike. There is a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week stream that is on that channel with matches dating back to 2013, including who we just talked about today, Tracy Taylor. And who's she in that match with? Well, one of them you probably wouldn't know. That would be Pandora. But the other two, one is the current Knockouts champion. That is Jordan Grace. And the other one is Siren the Voodoo Doll, who's once known as Nina Monet. You never know the faces that are floating around on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network website and channel. And on that note, again, much thanks to everyone that has tuned in and listened and downloaded. Send a message. By the way, thank you, Lord Jack. I did get your email, and I do appreciate it. You're a wonderful guy. I appreciate that you've gone to the shows, and even if you hadn't made it to these last set of tapings, you've done far more than your fair share. Thank you very much, sir. And that is going to be my close. So for myself and the Women's Pro Wrestling Network, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.